Well, a very good morning to you all and a welcome to our first community of practice focusing on climate change. It's great to see such interest in this event following the launch of our recent Climate and the Economy Conference series last month, where we showcased an impressive lineup of speakers reflecting the massive policy shift and focus that is now being placed on reaching net zero in Scotland. To recap a little, as a reminder of the conference key messages, our host Martin Valenti, Head of Climate Enterprise with Scottish Enterprise, and a passionate advocate for this agenda, described this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring about the change that is needed in Scotland. He emphasised that businesses are key to creating a just transition, and they need to view climate change, yes, as the greatest challenge of our time, but also the greatest opportunity. We heard from Chris Stark, CEO of the UK Climate Change Commission, about the vital role you, working in economic development, play in bringing about the changes that will be needed to achieve this aspiration. He also encouraged us to think of net zero as not just a scientific target, but a societal goal, requiring creative thinking in order to reduce carbon emissions and create a sustainable future for Scotland. And we heard from Susan Aitken, leader of Glasgow City Council, about the opportunity that COP26 means for Scotland as world leaders arrive in Glasgow and the eyes of the world are upon us. It offers a chance we need to grasp to attract the investment and innovation the new green economy demands. And she set the challenge to make this transition a fair one. Indeed, if it isn't fair, why do it? Kirsty Burge, Director of Energy and Climate Change at the Scottish Government, provided a comprehensive Scottish policy overview and also emphasised the need to embed fairness in all actions taken to reduce emissions, as well as the need to ensure Scotland's recovery post-COVID aligns with climate ambitions. And we heard from James Kenny, Head of Global Affairs with Arup, outline steps large companies and businesses are taking to drive change and lead by example. And Lindsay McQuaid, CEO of Scottish Power Renewables, described the work that becoming the UK's first integrated energy company to generate 100% green energy has taken. And summing up in the end, if you remember, the conference was a call to action. So it was a call to action for you as members, and it was a call to action for us in running EDAS. And so in response to this call to action, I reiterated that climate change and social change go hand in hand, that EDAS can create spaces such as this one we're starting today for the sharing of ideas, collaboration and learning, that we're challenged as a community to think about how every pound invested can impact climate and social change. And I also emphasised how EDAS can foster the coming together of new partners and interests across all sectors, and that we will review our learning and our CPD work to ensure our offer in this regard offers alignment with this new fast-changing landscape, so we support our members to navigate and contribute in optimum ways to this just transition. This first community of practice event is an early action in following up the call from our conference and the audience polling we undertook on the day. It aligns with the new 3-year strategy that we have just launched, and I hope that you as members will all have received that by email. It's available on our website too. And it marks the start of our practical journey with you on the climate agenda. EDAS has over 3,000 members across Scotland, many of whom are now contributing to the climate change challenge. So we're uniquely placed to reach this community and to create spaces for these vital conversations. We're clear that we're here to inspire you, to develop you, to encourage you as members, and to put in place the support that's needed as we navigate this new terrain and the terrain that lies ahead. Today's event reflects that, and I'm delighted that we will be welcoming the new Minister, Richard Lockhead MSP, who's just been appointed as Minister for Just Transition, Employment and Fair Work. And he will be speaking at our session today and providing a ministerial address. We had hoped he would be starting our session, but I think he's running a little bit late, so we may just be about to shift our agenda slightly to accommodate that. But he's someone who's clearly got is passionate about this agenda and is committed to the importance of this agenda. So we are really looking forward to hearing about what his priorities will be in his new role and the clear opportunities that this will bring. As is normal with these events, we will be muted or muting you during the presentations, but there will be an opportunity for questions and comments after the Minister has spoken. Please use the chat box to share your thoughts and views. So as I say, looks like the Minister is running a little bit late. I'm just getting an update here. So I think what we'll do firstly, initially, we have in terms of our agenda today, we were going to have Richard Lockhead speaking first, then some questions and answers. I think most of you should have received the agenda. And then we were really looking to you to shape the content, if you like, of our community of practice moving forward. So to help with that process, I'm really delighted to be joined by Ewan Mearns, who's Strategy Team Leader with Scottish Enterprise. And we're going to have some live polling with you so we can start to get some thinking about what you want from this community of practice. And we're also going to be holding discussion groups where you'll have a chance to consider a number of themes and reflect on that. So we're able to take all of that information away and shape that to your needs and what you're looking for going forward. So I think on that basis, we will just switch the agenda slightly. And if we can move, I think, to Ewan and to the first poll question, just to get us started. But thanks again, everybody. We're keeping this session relatively short, simply because we know that everyone's really, really busy. It is just about us trying to get a sense of where we take this agenda from this point on and shape this community of practice. So we would still hope to be finished around about midday, so we're not keeping people too long. Okay, so Ewan, I think over to you if you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Liz. That was a great introduction and setting the scene. So the community of practice really is all about you. What we're really keen to do is to get your views, get your ideas to help shape what we want to be talking about over coming weeks and months. As Liz has said, you know, the net zero transition is increasingly important to economic development practitioners. It's going to be a long-term agenda that really sits at the heart of what we need to do. But it is a learning opportunity. Not everyone comes with expertise in this area. So perhaps for some people it's about awareness. It might also be about sharing good practice. It might also be about promoting collaboration. So what we want to do is really get some audience participation going first of all, and to get a sense from you as to what you think the key topics, the hot topics are that we should be talking about. Where do you want to learn from others? Where would you like to hear from experts or good practice around Scotland or further afield? And also, how do you think the community of practice should operate? So without further ado, let's just kick off with the first question. So you should have a link. You can vote for more than one answer. So please just take a minute or two. It is quite a long list of topics, and it's not comprehensive. So we will have a chance in the discussion groups to think about other opportunities that you might want to look at. But please tick all of the topics that you think that are most relevant to you and to your organisation. We'll just give it a few minutes then for people to cast their votes.
And sorry, Ewan, just to confirm to press submit once you've filled in your boxes.
Great. Yep. Thank you, Alison. So we've got a couple of questions, and then once we've heard from the Minister, we'll split out into discussion groups, and we'll have a chance to have a more detailed conversation about what some of these topics are, what in particular you'd like to hear about, you know, who some good speakers or organisations are that you might want to hear from too. So we'll have about 30 minutes for the discussion groups. So it looks like the polling is more or less settled down. Has everyone had a chance to cast their votes? Okay, I'll assume the answer to that is yes.
I think about half, slightly more than half of people have cast their vote so far, Ewan.
Okay, okay. Well, let's just leave it a few more minutes then. Maybe everyone's just digesting the very long list of potential topics. I'm hoping that everyone's managed to access Mentimeter. People can always let us know via the chat function if they're having issues.
That's probably about everyone now.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Great, so we'll move on to the next question, the second and last question. So the first question was really about what you'd like to hear about. Oh, sorry, this is the other category. So we had a long list of topics. So are there any other topics that didn't appear in that long list that you think, you know, that's something that we should be putting on our agenda? You just want to, there's some things that immediately occur to you now, just maybe take a minute to pop these into the Mentimeter survey. Great, energy master planning. I mean, as Liz said, this is such a broad agenda. It pretty much covers the whole gamut of what economic development is all about and beyond. So there's lots of different dimensions of this. So that's great. Really good to see some good ideas coming through. Okay. This is great. Loads of ideas. It's going to give us lots of material for discussion when we go out into the breakouts. Okay, we almost done. Can we move on?
I would suggest you, and if you've run out of time, you can also add in these ideas to the chat box as well.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to the next question in that case. Yeah, so this is about the how. So EDAS already has an inclusive growth community practice. Some of you will be familiar with that. You will be familiar with other ways in which people engage in these kind of collaborative discussions. So you know, we're in an online environment at the moment. That may change at some point in the future, but how would you best like to engage with other EDAS members? Equally, you know, there may be other ways, other ideas that occur to you that don't appear on this list. And I think we'll have a chance to include those as well. So it looks like there's a preference there for hearing from experts and also sharing good practice between practitioners. Okay, the vote's still coming in.
Yeah, that's just about everyone, I would say.
Okay. Right, have we got one more question, Elizabeth?
Oh, that's it.
That was it, yeah. So, okay, so if there's anything that doesn't appear on this list in terms of how you think the community of practice should operate, please just drop that into the chat box now or raise it in the discussions.
Okay, thanks very much, Ewan. Thanks for taking us through that. That's excellent. It's a great start. Again, lots for us to consider, both in terms of the actual statistical information, but also great to see some really good comments there as well. We will take all of this away, obviously, in shaping what we do going forward. I'm absolutely delighted now to confirm that we have the Minister with us. He's arrived virtually in our company. So great to have Richard Lockhead, MSP, as I say, newly appointed Minister for Just Transition, Employment and Fair Work, to open the input, the formal input to our session today, and to provide a ministerial address. Just by way of a little bit of background, Richard Lockhead, MSP, was elected to the Scottish Parliament in 1999 and 2003 via the North East Regional List. During the second session of Parliament, he stood down from his regional seat and was elected as constituency MSP for Moray in the by-election in April 2006. He was previously the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs, Food and Environment, and Minister for Further Education, Higher Education and Science. So a very broad portfolio over the years has been covered by Richard, but I think probably all of us would agree that the one that he's looking at now is more important than ever, given the times that we're living in. So Richard, delighted to have you here. Welcome to our event today, and over to you. And yes.
Thank you very much, Liz. I take it you can hear me okay. Lovely to join you all this morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. And thank you for the introduction, Liz. That little potted history of my life there in politics. And of course, it makes me feel ancient because I'm one of the remaining few 99ers left in Parliament, given that in the most recent elections, I think about a third or quarter of the MSPs were new. So yes, it's good to join you and to say hello to everyone who's tuned in, no doubt, from around the country. As you say, I'm starting my new parliamentary term as Scotland's first ever Minister for Just Transition. So I'm responsible for leading what I think is a really exciting agenda that will coordinate action across government and oversee a national mission of fairness and opportunity as our country moves towards net zero. And as we recover from COVID-19, the Scottish Government is pursuing a green recovery to accelerate our transition to net zero. Now, we all know that climate change and nature loss are the greatest global threats that we face, and that we all have an obligation to do what we can to deliver a better future. And the transition to net zero can unleash huge opportunities for Scotland. But we also know that the costs and benefits of our transition will not necessarily be shared fairly. And that's why in Scotland we are committed to delivering a just transition. Just transition is all about ensuring that as we reduce our emissions and respond to a changing climate, that the journey is fair and creates opportunities for everyone in our society, regardless of where they live or what they do or who they are. So it's this principle which is at the forefront of our ambition to end Scotland's contribution to climate change. And internationally, just transition has rightfully been gaining momentum as a central pillar of how we tackle climate change, and it's an approach that will have to underpin all of our actions. And countries around the world are beginning to look to Scotland to better understand how to embed fairness in their climate action as well. So what's really important is that our commitment to just transition is not simply warm words, that we are world renowned for having underpinned our net zero targets with a legislative commitment to just transition. And we also established an independent Just Transition Commission to further inform our approach in this area. And the commission was established in 2019 and given the remit of advising ministers on how we transition to a net zero economy in a way which maximises the economic and social opportunities while managing all of these challenges at the same time. That commission brought together academics, trade unions, environmental groups, businesses, and it published its final advice for ministers earlier this year. So the recommendations covered a vast range of topics, but one really clear message was that the economic opportunity posed by decarbonisation is indisputable. And by realising these opportunities, we can only do that by requiring everyone to pull in the same direction. So that means business and trade unions and the whole public sector working closely together towards that single vision. And that's why the Commission named its report a national mission for a fairer, Greener Scotland. Now, the Scottish Government will be formally responding to the report in the next few months, and it will help guide us as we continue to refine what a just transition looks like for Scotland. But again, it's clear that there's a role for everyone in getting behind the agenda and driving progress, and that very much includes the economic development community in Scotland, which of course is represented here today. We are already taking action to maximise and realise the huge economic opportunities associated with meeting our climate targets. For example, we are investing in key net zero markets. We've got a £1.6 billion package for heating buildings. We've got our £180 million Emerging Energy Technologies Fund. We've got the £120 million we've invested to decarbonise Scotland's bus network. So these investments will also create and maintain good green jobs. And I'm also Minister for Fair Work. So Fair Work and Just Transition are very closely aligned because we want good jobs and green jobs. And we're also taking action to align our skills policy with all this investment, including through the Climate Emergency Skills Action Plan, which supports reskilling and retraining people, ensuring they have access to green jobs now and in the future. So there are real opportunities to tackle inequality within our society, such as increasing connectivity for people in lower socio-economic groups by improving priority bus infrastructure. And we're also delivering a transformational programme to decarbonise heat in buildings that supports those least able to pay and provides job opportunities, and also, of course, helps tackle fuel poverty. Now, I know there is a wide range of attendees here today at your event, which of course is encouraging, and we want to work with you all across all sectors to deliver this national mission of our commitment to a just transition. So there are two main ways that you can work with us to deliver on this agenda. Firstly, by using your leadership. In your own organisations, we are keen to see how you are able to put your commitment to climate change and just transition front and centre. I know that Scotland's local authorities are on the front line of response to the global climate emergency and are already playing a very strong leadership role in that national endeavour to deliver a just transition to net zero emissions by 2045. And that includes delivering in themes across climate policy, particularly green recovery and skills, the just transition and COP26. And we continue to support local authority leadership in the climate emergency through ongoing engagement with public sector leadership groups, including COSLA and the Scottish Sustainable Network, Scottish Energy Officers Network, and the Scottish Cities Alliance. And a really good example of the Scottish Government's ambitious and integrated approach with local authorities is the Green Growth Accelerator. And the focus of outcomes for the Green Growth Accelerator will include carbon emission reductions, unlocking net zero and just transition opportunities, and targeting growth in green jobs. That's a £200 million investment across the full lifetime of the programme, which will speed up delivery of low carbon infrastructure projects across the country and provide extra resources and technical support to local authorities to get projects off the ground more quickly. Likewise, I warmly welcome the leadership role that many businesses are already playing and the action they are taking to reduce carbon emissions and again capture the opportunities of net zero. There is, of course, more we can all do to showcase the important work that you're all taking forward, and COP26 provides a big opportunity to demonstrate and accelerate further the world-leading climate action we are taking. As a global leader in climate action, the Scottish Government will use COP26 as a platform to champion Scotland's conference themes of just transition and people, and help drive forward tangible international climate action. So COP26 is an opportunity to demonstrate Scotland's world-leading approach to climate change and strengthen our international partnerships and our commitment to global cooperation to tackle the challenge of the climate crisis. So I really look to you all to do your best to try and get involved in all of that. And secondly, I'd like to emphasise the importance of transition planning. You all have a key role in developing solutions and new opportunities in growing net zero markets, in harnessing the strengths of Scotland's workforce, and supporting people to retrain and capture new opportunities. And we want to work with you to invest in the skills and infrastructure and innovation that will deliver the just transition to net zero. To help you in Scotland benefit from the associated growth and employment opportunities, we think that's all essentially important. And we know there will be obstacles on this journey, and we will also need to continue to learn as we go. But by working in partnership for the transition, hopefully we can all reap the benefits for all parts of our society. Planning will be crucial to ensure that opportunities for the transition for the economy and society are not missed, and the inherent risks associated with rapid structural change are mitigated as far as possible. Transition planning is something that will be needed at all levels, including for individual sectors and industries and regions, and for individual businesses. I know I've touched upon at various points the importance of partnership, and if you take away one thing from me today, I hope it is that partnerships between businesses of all sizes and partnerships between businesses and government is going to be absolutely essential for the delivery of all these plans. So the work that you're committing to here today is very, very important. The Climate Community of Practice commits to creating a space where you can collaborate and promote each other to be climate leaders and support a transition to net zero. So I'm very confident that with all your support and engagement in this key piece of work, that we'll make huge progress working together. By sharing best practice and showcasing your experience, hopefully you'll also inspire others to take action as well. And by working together, we will all be better placed to meet our personal and national targets. I'm sure you all recognise the significance and urgency of addressing climate change, and Scotland's economic development community has such a vital role to play in helping meet our goals and create these new business opportunities and provide world-leading research and development and technological solutions and support the development of the skills that we will need for a green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So I just want to wish you all the best of luck in that massive challenge. But as I've just indicated, it's redolent with opportunities. And as people working in economic development, you all have such a crucial role to play. So as the new Minister for Just Transition, I look forward to working closely with you all in the months and years ahead as we use the next 5 years of the Scottish Parliament and the new government to make sure that all the building blocks are in place and we're making real progress towards net zero and ending Scotland's contribution to climate change by 2045. Thank you.
Richard, thanks so much. That was excellent, very clear, very comprehensive. Obviously, a limited amount of time to share your ideas, but I think you covered a lot of territory, a lot of ground there. You know, and a great summary, I think, of the kind of main areas that you'll be focusing on, and also where the investment is going behind all of that, and also a challenge to us in terms of how we respond and what we do here at EDAS to support the work of the Scottish Government and the vision that Scotland has through its leadership, political leadership going forward. So we have, I think, are you able to stay with us for some questions still?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so we've got now, we can use the raised hand as well. I'll just remind everybody, you know, sometimes it's good. I know we're all used to working in the online environment now, but sometimes it's lovely to hear people's voices and see faces attached to those voices. But we have got some questions I can see in the chat box just now, which I'll just read out to you, Richard. So we've got a question from Alex Walker, that's the first one. Last year, the Scottish Government announced that the community climate action hubs would be set up, but since the original consultation, nothing's been announced. Do you have any idea of what the timetable is for this? Do you have any clarity on that, Richard?
Thanks, Alec, who I know well and who's a constituent, so I'll be super polite to him at the moment. Just to say that my colleague Michael Matheson, the Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero, is working on that at the moment. So I can't give you an answer off the top of my head in terms of exact timescales, but I know that that the work has been taken forward on that, and of course having those hubs and working across all our communities in Scotland is an important part of getting where we want to get to. This is not just about big industries and big companies and different sectors. It's about being right across Scotland. So if you want to leave that with me, Alec, I'll ask Michael Matheson perhaps to communicate back to you the latest timeline. Okay,
that's great, thank you. We also have Chris Cook here has given a little bit of a context. He's saying the market paradigm of financial institutions and instruments, for example, debt, equity and derivatives, which created the crisis and drove inequality cannot resolve it. Okay, so this is something fundamental and structurally. Is Scottish Government looking at complementary legal designs, and if not, why not? And again, if you need any clarity about what that means, I would ask Chris to maybe come on and just clarify any points. Is that clear enough, Richard?
If he wants to elaborate, I'll gladly hear from him, but I'll do my best to answer it. Do you want to bring him in?
Chris, are you there?
Yes, indeed. Thank you. At the launch of the Scottish National Investment Bank, I asked the First Minister, is it the case that the new bank will be dealing in the normal way of investment via equity in shares in companies and in debt? Or is the fund, is SNIB open to new approaches as well? Like I talk about partnership equity, if you like, shares within a partnership framework. And she said, whatever works, and directed me to the Building Scotland Fund, which was essentially the provisional wing of this SNIB. But the moment the new bank opened, all I got was, please send your email to inquiries at Scottish National Investment Bank. You know, I basically got completely blanked. So I really would like, what I'm putting forward, this is from a perspective of 40 years in financial services. I designed the UK natural gas futures market contract, for instance, and I advise governments on this, Richard. I really would like to engage and help to bring my experience into, you know, to assist in this process, because I do think that myself and the network of people I deal with have a lot to add. But at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any appetite in Scottish Government for this, not necessarily the ministers, but maybe it's elsewhere. So a little bit of frustration, Richard, in terms of engaging on non-standard practice.
And I think you've made those points before as well, Chris, from some of our other events as well. So, okay, so understandably, you know, wanting some an audience really for this, or direction as to where to go to. And you know, anyway, you're here, Richard. Perhaps you have some thoughts on that.
So all I can say, Chris, is if you send me an email about that, obviously I can communicate with the Scottish Investment Bank about that. As an overall principle, we are absolutely up for doing things differently and better. And you know, the Scottish Investment Bank is an exciting new development in Scotland, with getting us to net zero at the heart of what it's got to do. So if you want to communicate with me, I will do my best to try and get an answer out of them for you. But they're a new bank, and I'm sure they should be open-minded to do things differently.
Okay. All right, so there's an offer for you, Chris. You've got a route in now. Okay, so we've got one final question before we just wrap things up for this part of the morning. Ewan Mearns, my colleague on the board and member of staff at Scottish Enterprise, is asking, how can we ensure that supporting businesses and industries with transitional planning takes into account their recovery from the pandemic? And that's presumably central to what you're thinking as well. But would like your views on that, Richard.
Yeah, so everyone I've been speaking to in the last few days about this issue or these general themes, I've emphasised that the new Parliament, the new government, is already feeling a lot different to the previous Parliament a few weeks ago. We only had elections a few weeks ago, because the whole issue of our journey towards net zero and fair work being embedded in everything we do, to get good quality jobs, and not just green jobs, but good quality green jobs. You know, it's remarkable how the agenda is already changing just in a matter of weeks and months. There's a different feel to this Parliament. And we are looking to see how we can bring all influence to bear that we have as we move out of COVID and look towards recovery, that we are not going back to where we were before, but we are creating those good quality green jobs, and therefore we will have to take decisions about how we can bring that influence to bear in terms of, you know, if you want to get public funding, you have to be aligned with the Scottish Government's values and Parliament's values of these good quality green jobs. So through Fair Work First, and also ensuring that companies and businesses are aligned to where we're going towards net zero, is the way in which we're going to do that. And obviously working with our enterprise companies and agencies, enterprise agencies, is an important part of that. So if you're looking for public support to recover your business and to expand and survive COVID, obviously we're keen to work out how we can make sure that the jobs that are created are good jobs and green jobs going forward.
Okay, happy with that, Ewan?
Yeah, thank you. No, it's a good comprehensive answer. It's just a tension that I know, I'm not speaking personally, but others have made that observation. That, how quickly can we address this? How quickly can we address the urgency of the climate emergency and the just transition? So no, thank you very much.
I think it's fair. I mean, really, it's fair to say, for those working in economic development, for those involved in the economy, I mean, the world has changed and shifted so much in the last year. That it's almost as though we're working in a different, an entirely different time. So the challenges are massive. But again, that's why we emphasize here at EDAS that the need for collaboration, the need to bring in not just people working in traditional forms of economic development, but actually everybody who's contributing in that regard across sectors. We want to bring people together, so we're hoping that our community of practice will actually be broader even than just perhaps our usual economic development officers and practitioners in local authorities, etc. So we're really excited about what we can do here. Okay, I'm mindful of time. Richard, you're very welcome to stay on to join some of the discussion groups. If you have time, you're very welcome to do that. If not, we hope this is the beginning of a dialogue with you. We're going to be having these sessions throughout the year. Climate and planet, frankly, is front and center in our strategy going forward. So I hope this isn't the last time that we see you or that we have a chance to engage with you and speak to you. But this is the start of a relationship over the next period.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and we've got First Minister's questions in about half an hour, and I've got a few things to do before that, so I apologise for having to leave you. But just to say that you're all in very crucial positions in our country and in our society, and given that you're working in economic development, you're absolutely the heart of influencing where our local communities and local economies will go in the future. So all I can do is urge you all just day in, day out to think about how through your various roles you're contributing towards getting us towards net zero, and in the right way. And you're all at the front line in terms of this huge economic challenge. And the government, of course, is looking to a 10-year plan for economic transformation in our country, but that kind of starts now. So every decision you're taking and every project you're involved in, please have those agendas at the front of your mind, and you'll be playing your role. So thank you very much.
Okay, we will make sure you're kept abreast of how we're progressing with all of this, Richard. Thanks so much. Busy day, obviously busy time. So thank you for taking the time out to attend here today and for your really interesting contribution. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, so we'll move on now. I think we're going into our discussion groups. Unless, Ewan, do you have anything else you want to add, or are we just going to move straight to the discussion groups? I think you kind of covered the intro.
Yeah, I think we can go straight to the discussion groups.
Yeah, okay, so let's do that. Now, can I just ask, is it Elizabeth or Alison or Elaine, just to kind of describe how we're doing this in practical terms? I can say quite
yes, so we'll have
with that part.
We'll have 4 discussion groups led by Ewan Mearns, Robert Pollock, Hannah Smith or Stuart Black, who are part of the EDAS board. And I can open up the breakout rooms and we'll be off.
Okay, all right, great. And we'll come back in about half an hour. I think just by way of rounding things off, we're going to hear from each of the facilitators of the groups, just with some of the key points that came from their conversations. So perhaps we could go to, I'm just seeing who I can see on the screen here. Robert, you're in my eye line here, so I'll
yeah.
First.
Thanks, Liz. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Well, first of all, apologies to my group. I abandoned ship about 30 seconds before the breakout room actually closed. So thanks to everyone on my group for their really rich contributions. We were small in number, but I did actually think the contributions were superb and do suggest that there is a real desire for further dialogue. It's one of those things as you begin to sort of peel the onion of the question of economic development and the climate agenda, it just keeps bringing new issues to the surface. So I think this community of practice is going to prove its worth. It was interesting because we had a number of useful perspectives, both from a rural perspective, a business development perspective, and also from a skills perspective. So I thought it was a nice blend of the economic development community. But it was quite interesting. We started with the whole question of natural capital, and do we really understand how to integrate the notion of natural capital into the economic development agenda, into appraisal, into implementation, into evaluation. And we recognize that there were limits to the Green Book. You know, there's been a lot of talk in recent years, recent months, about how the Green Book is beginning to address issues around leveling up and social inclusion, but it's still way short in understanding how we understand natural capital. And it's almost as if our lens, the capitalist lens, is too narrow. It tries to monetize all values, and perhaps there are just some values that cannot be neatly monetized, but are still integral to the economic development system. So a very interesting question. I think this will be fundamental to the economic development community of practice that we're developing. So there was something around methodologies of understanding appraisal, monitoring, and evaluation. But there was also, we discussed the need to also have business advisors who can actually articulate to businesses, you know, the need for net zero and put the need to move to net zero within a wider frame of reference for the private sector. And we did a contributor from Scotland Can Be, who are training a cadre of business advisors to work within companies to take that wider perspective, take a systems perspective. So I thought that could be a very valuable contribution for a future community of practice. How do we develop business advisors to allow businesses to have a wider perspective on their business and how it aligns with society and the economy? And that took us onto a discussion about systems perspectives and systems thinking. We also talked about green jobs, and the big question there is, what is a green job? But then we've got opened up to what are green skills, what are green opportunities, and we recognize that the taxonomy is still quite fluid. You know, to have credible frameworks of change, you need stable taxonomies for these concepts that can be transferred across the community. And our contributor from Skills Development Scotland said that within 100 days, by the 26th of August, they will have actually a settled definition of green jobs, etc. And we thought that could be a useful element for a community of practice in the future. So just to summarize, there was a lot of talk about definitions, there was a lot of talk about methodologies and systems, and we also thought there needs to be better narratives to explain what the future should look like. So I'll leave it there, Liz.
Sorry, I'm just muted there. Thanks, Robert. That's excellent. Really well-rounded and clear ideas of where we can take some of this and some contributions as well. So thank you. Can we move to, I think we'll go to Stuart next. Stuart Black, I think, was running another session. Oh, Stuart, you're muted, I think. There you go.
Yeah, I've got just unmuting. Yeah, we also had a small group. There was 5 of us in the group. Topics that we covered was first one was energy master planning, and that's being used across the country now to develop strategies and policies around net zero. An exemplar for good practice was considered to be the Borderlands Master Plan, which covers south of Scotland and north of England. And looks at creating economic opportunities from the switch to net zero. We also had a bit of a discussion on green jobs and recovery, particularly what it will mean for disadvantaged communities. We had Derek from SURF on our group, and he was giving some good practice examples from Langham and also in Argyll and Butte. And also we talked about bringing in international experience around net zero and the transition here from other countries such as Scandinavia, Austria, on things like wood energy. Interesting topic we covered was geothermal from former mine works, and some expertise. A couple of colleagues from Scottish Enterprise on the discussion group. They talked about Professor Zoe Shipton from Strathclyde University. Obviously, it's interesting. Richard Lockhead, previous to today, I've heard him speak about the the transition away from coal and how that left many communities disadvantaged, and the just transition trying to avoid that. So it was interesting that former mine works could have a role in terms of hot water that's stored in them around generating heat for disadvantaged places. So that was interesting. We also had a discussion about areas that are making the transition and the economic benefits that are coming. And there were some really positive figures from Orkney yesterday about the economic impact of all the renewables activity there. And also importantly, that activity benefiting local communities as well. A lot of the outer islands in Orkney have their own community-owned wind generators, wind turbines, and that's helping reduce fuel bills and also bring in income. We discussed retrofitting and place-based regeneration. Again, there's huge job opportunities in transforming all our housing stock, putting in a better insulation. The schemes really need to be increased in scale. They need to be more open for smaller organisations and community-led regeneration. And obviously there's a big skills gap in some of those areas. So there is a win-win potentially. And then another thing we talked about was district heating, and how some of the district heating, unfortunately, coming in to Scotland hasn't been as good as it might have been. And there's been some issues. Certainly when I worked for Highland Council, there were some issues around the transition to people using wood fuel rather than gas boilers, for example, and the training that was required. So those were the sort of topics we covered, and it was a good discussion. So happy to leave it at that. Thank you. Apologies if I missed anything, but it was a nice, succinct discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Stuart. That was really comprehensive, and I think also great because it sounds as though you're really coming up with a lot of really kind of pragmatic examples of what's happening already, and perhaps what could be learned from that. So that was really comprehensive actually for the time that you had there. So thank you, and good to see kind of cross-sectoral input too. Can we come to Hannah next, who I think was group 3?
Thanks, Liz. And you gave me a really nice segue in here with your mention of pragmatism, because that was a real theme that came out of our breakout session, which was excellent. Our conversation really focused on kind of the end user of this, and we spent a long time discussing how to best understand the requirements across different types of people in this space. So small businesses, micro businesses having different needs to larger organisations, public sector dynamics, community groups. How do we use this community of practice to identify their needs and then deliver against them? So that was a kind of key theme coming out of us. We talked in particular about the rural communities and their needs and aspirations versus what we're seeing in sort of urban discourse at the moment, and needing to be conscious about that dynamic. And we talked a lot about what success would look like for the COP, and a real focus coming out there of practical skills sharing and examples. So using this as a forum for learning, for reaching out to new stakeholders and sharing the good, but also arguably the bad and the ugly, and some of the challenges that others have seen as they transition. And as part of that, we talked a lot about language and communication. I think we recognise that sometimes this space can feel quite scary. Some of the terminology that Robert was talking about still feels a bit fluffy, a little bit opaque to people. What can we do to make sure that we are using the right language? We're helping perhaps demystify some of what's about there, and giving people practical kind of toolkits that don't feel scary but feel hopeful. So I'll leave it there by way of summary. I've got pages of notes which I'll share with the EDAS team, but a really good discussion in our group.
Okay, that sounds great, Hannah. Thank you so much. And last but definitely not least, the group that I was involved with, Ewan, do you want to come in just to round this off?
Great, thank you, Liz. So just very quickly, I'll start with the how. So we talked about the value of collaboration between organisations. A number of people mentioned that was what they were looking for. The need to avoid duplication and reinventing wheels. And also, as we've just heard, the sharing good practice. You know, what works and what can we embed and transfer elsewhere. So in terms of the kind of hot topics, if you like, and there's some similarity with what's already been discussed. We talked firstly about business engagement. How do we promote the benefits, particularly to companies who are struggling to recover from the pandemic? What's in it for them? So how do we help them transition both in the short and longer term Part of that is really about highlighting business opportunities and helping them access those. We also talk about the role of the public sector in influencing and then incentivizing businesses to take action. The second topic was really around heat decarbonisation. Probably quite a good example then, just to, what's working in some parts of Scotland. How do we transfer those lessons? And then finally, we also touched on appraisal and measurement issues. So as we heard just now, we need to think more broadly. We need to kind of widen our understanding of how we can track progress and also what success looks like. And so again, to avoid reinventing wheels, how can we share that good practice, that thinking that's taking place in certain quarters, so we can take some shortcuts. So that was just a brief update of the key topics in our group.
Okay, thanks very much, Ewan. Again, I think been a lot of ground covered with both the presentations, but also with the discussion that's taken place this morning, and actually through the polling. I mean, you saw the sheer number of themes that we had for you to vote on and give your thoughts on. So there's a lot in this, clearly, that we now need to go away and reflect how we can perhaps categorize and organize and look at what is of most priority. So we, myself, the board members that are here today, our staff team who are supporting this event, will all do that now. I think I can safely say, I hope I'm not talking out of turn, that we will summarize what's come from this and share it with you in terms of just getting your feedback to make sure that we've hit the mark, we haven't missed anything. You'll also have a chance to come back and add anything that perhaps by way of reflection you feel we want to include as well. But I think that's been a really good start to us shaping what this community of practice will look like. I think it was interesting, the group that I was in had some contributors who were from local authority or from the economic development community, but were supporting economic development, but had a climate hat on and weren't necessarily used to working alongside economic development practitioners, but were very much seeing that was the role that needed to be fostered and collaborated. I think our audience will broaden, and it needs to broaden as part of this work. So we will certainly be looking to do that through the work that we take forward in this practice group. So I just want to kind of round up, because I'm also conscious of time, we're slightly over. But can I thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here today. I hope you found it interesting and informative. I think there are some key themes and topics that we will now take away and focus on, and as I say, share for your feedback. So we look to take this forward. One thing we didn't, I think, nail as part of today's discussion was the frequency of our meetings. So we'll come back to you on that, just to get a sense of how often you think it would be pragmatic to come together and meet. But we will communicate with you post this. Can I just thank, obviously the minister's left, but clearly I want to thank him for his contribution formally this morning. Likewise to Robert, Ewan, Hannah and Stuart for stepping in and facilitating our very interesting workshops. And also in the background, obviously to Elaine, Alison, Elizabeth and Holly, who are instrumental in making all of this happen and have been working really hard for all of our events in recent months. So we really appreciate their contributions. And as I say, to all of you for being here today and to help shape this really important piece of work that's central to our strategy and our operations going forward. So we hope that we're going to be able to create something here that's going to be of real value. And I think taking Hannah's point, pragmatic value as well, because that's what matters at the end of the day. We don't want this to be a talking shop. It's got to be about what makes a difference to people on the ground. So I think that's how I'll end things here, but thanks very much. We will be in touch and enjoy the rest of your day. Look forward to speaking to you and seeing you again soon. Just one thing, I see there's a lot of contacts and information on the chat box. We will also share the links that are part of that too. Okay, well done everybody. Thanks very much. Take care now.